one thing was for sure. They both believed Sparks to be a total tool.
Be an exciting contest which shows that divorced couples can still have fun together, right?
Mythological hero H-list. C. On the spot dice spin.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
1975 was a great year for game shows. Left and right game shows were being bought up for weekly syndication, 5-day-a-week syndication, or by ABC, NBC, and CBS to fill out their daytime and afternoon schedules. But with so many game shows being bought up, you're going to come across a lot of clunkers. That's why I am giving you my list of the top 5 worst game shows of 1975. Now, there's one major rule for this list. I have to have seen a full episode of this show, otherwise it's not going to be on the list. That's why a show such as Don Adams' Screen Test is not going to be on this list. Well then, let's get started. Here we go! I love video games. I mean, it's not that hard to tell. But I also love pinball. I mean, down at Dorky's in downtown Tacoma, I always play a lot of the Tron pinball machine. But when I saw this show, my heart just sank.
And now, here's the man who runs the magnificent marble machine, Art James!
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. And welcome to the magnificent marble machine. That machine is where the payoff is, where one of our players may win cash and prizes totaling $10, $20, maybe $50,000 or more.
Magnificent Marble Machine is a show that's based around the big gimmick of a gigantic pinball machine. Hosted deftly by Art James, 2 teams of 1 civilian and 1 celebrity solved a series of word puzzles in order to get to the namesake Magnificent Marble Machine. Which is fine in theory, but in practice, this show is downright brainless. A lot of people give Pressure Luck a lot of crap because really all it's doing is you're just hitting a button and you're winning money. But there is some gamesmanship to this and some strategy as well, whether in to pass your spins. If a contestant's got 3 whammies on the board, do you pass a lot of spins to him and hopefully they'll whammy out? The Magnificent Marble Machine had none of that, especially when you got to the machine. All you were doing was just hitting your flipper like this and hoping to hit the bumpers in order to win prizes. What strategy is there to this? So for the front game, you had some admittedly clever word puzzles to quiz the contestants. But then it just felt tacked on in comparison. You could have built an entire game around the word puzzle concept and it could have made for a decent 13-week show or maybe a 2-year, once-a-week syndicated run. But then you get to the machine itself and all it consists of is hitting the buttons and the bumpers and anything that would make a sound to reach an arbitrary number in order to play the money ball. Along the way you do hit certain bumpers where you could pick up prizes. My biggest gripe with this entire show is the machine itself. When you see the machine in action, you just clock out immediately. The machine is nothing exciting and turns out to be the biggest anchor, figuratively and literally. The show was a failure on all accounts, even resorting to make a show in all celebrity format where the celebs played for viewers at home. That made the show even worse, and NBC decided to rage against the machine and cancel it. Art James wouldn't host another show until 1980 in Canada for Super Pay Cards. One of my favorite things about the intro is that during the intro they'll flash up a thing saying, "You'll like it, trust us." Trust you? I'd rather trust Jake the Snake Roberts more than I trust this show. Next!
And here's the star of our show, your host, Jim Lyon. Thank you. Oh, boy. Welcome to Romance on the Air.
Jim Lang is an unsung hero of game shows. He handled shows with the flimsiest of formats and hosts them just as well as anybody could expect. In 1975, he handled 2 shows with really flimsy formats and did his best to make them somewhat watchable. It somewhat worked with Spinoff, but the other one, oh boy.
Today, one of these 4 players will have a chance to win over $16,000 in magnificent prizes as they play Hollywood's most exciting new game, Give and Take. Now here's the star of Give and Take, Jim Lang. welcome to Give and Take. And today, our players again will be competing for the most glamorous prizes on television. And
Give and Take is a show that is about as brainless as Magnificent Marble Machine, but with an even less impressive gimmick of a spinning pointer. 4 contestants were each given a prize at the start of the show, and then Jim Lane asks a question to the contestants. The first contestant to buzz in with the right answer got control of the 4 black spaces on the wheel and went to stop the wheel from spinning. If the prize landed on your space or spaces, you could either take it or force it onto your opponent in the hopes they would put them over $5,000. If they get over $5,000, they are frozen and can't do anything more. They repeat this for about 4 more times until people fall asleep watching their TVs in boredom, wishing they were watching The Price is Right for an hour. No joke, I watched this on YouTube and it was just a chore to sit through. It made it easier not only for myself, but for CBS themselves to expand The Price is Right to an hour-long show. So this show had to succeed, or it was dead. And the bonus game was about as brainless as the front game. The contestant picks 1 space, and if the pointer lands on that, they win all the prizes announced on the show. The show had absolutely no thought put into it, and it was rushed to air. And just as I said before, it was nothing more than schedule filler till the hour-long Price is Right was ready, and CBS was more than willing to put anything on the air to pad out the hour. Makes me saddened that the Joker's Wild was axed for this and spin-off. At least Jim Lane's next show should have been better.
we all play the Hollywood Connection. And now, let's meet our host, Jim Lane. Thank you. Welcome. Hey, Pat, Nipsey. Hello, Mayor. Hello, Jaja and Milton. You all look lovely today. You've met our wild panel, and we'll get on with the show in just a moment.
I stand corrected. Next! I really should have done this show sooner.
And now, from the travel crossroads of the world in beautiful Hawaii, it's the Diamond Head Games, starring Bob Eubanks.
Aloha and welcome to Diamond Head, coming to you from the paradise of the Pacific.
Jim Williams did a great job roasting the show for this channel a little more than a month ago. My take is a little more dark than his, but not as much as Bob Eubanks himself, who is well known for saying this about it on Card Sharks.
I did a television show called The Diamond Head Game one time. Daytime and nighttime. It was the worst piece of boop boop that anybody has ever witnessed. Oh, no. Didn't hurt my career.
Like Magnificent Marble Machine above, the show revolved around one gigantic gimmick. This gimmick is the location of the show itself in Hawaii. Aside from that one gimmick, this game took less time to come up with than Give and Take. So, the game took around 10 minutes to come up with, roughly. The first round has 2 contestants answering various questions either involving Hawaii, or staring at what Jade Nelson is doing in Hawaiian garb. The second round is some lame remembering game that eliminates contestants, and then we get to the Swirling Whirlwind. Let's be honest here. This show was about as flimsy as it got. There was no thought put to this, and the only gimmick they had that was interesting was not Hawaii, but the Swirling Whirlwind. I mean, surely they could have done something interesting with that. Yeah, the Whirlwind was fun to watch for the 15 seconds it was on, seeing somebody trying to grab cash and prizes. But as soon as it was over, we got the long, drawn-out, let's make a deal style of Bob pulling out a bill or a slip and telling the contestant what they won and then offering some sort of buyout. It wasn't exciting TV, and even though Bob had to self-censor himself on Card Sharks, I'll say it for him. This show was shit. I have no more words for this show. Next!
And here's your host on Catchphrase, Art James. Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to Catchphrase.
You got a feel for Art James. He was a really good MC, hosting shows as far back as 1959 when he was filling in for Hugh Downs in Concentration, and hosting one of the best quizzers of the 70s in the Who, What, or Where game. But after that show, every other show was either short-lived, very bad, or a combination of both. Magnificent Marble Machine would go into the very bad category. This show would fall into both. Not only was it short-lived, it was also very, very bad.
It's Blank Check! And here's the star of our show, Art James!
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Welcome to Blank Check, where our players have 5 full days to write checks which could add up to a fortune.
Art James himself billed the show as Blank Mind when he was interviewed about it at Game Show Congress, and I can't blame him one bit. The show billed itself as a game of ESP and wasn't even that good of an ESP game. One of the 6 contestants was the check writer and hit a button that showed 5 numbers. Art James asked a question to 5 contestants who weren't the check writer that were basically word connections such as fish and students to come up with school. Then the check writer picked one of the 5 numbers and the challenger had to guess the right answer by using ESP. As astute visitors of the site know that I abhor everything involving ESP. But this is not only bad, it's just plain boring. The questions weren't exciting and the picking of numbers were a great cure for insomnia. Not only that, the process to get the 4th number wasn't that exciting either. It was more boring predictions but replaced numbers instead of prizes and a contestant with an audience member. If the check writer did pick off the audience member's prize pick, then the 4th number is played for. This repeated until the end of time made me want to watch more Split Second. And that's exactly what the show was. It was bland, it was boring, and made you want to flip over and watch more Split Second. And now, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. You've been waiting for it all video. My number 1 pick for the worst game show of 1975. Here it is. I abhor rip-offs more than you'll know. I also abhor game shows that are mean on purpose, which is why I thought The Chamber in 2003 is one of the worst game shows of all time. But in 1975, we got one of the worst game shows of all time, and it should have stayed behind the white picket fences of suburbia, never to be heard from again. And also to protect the reputation of Regis Philbin.
It's time for the neighbors. And now here's the neighbor's best friend and your host, Regis Philbin.
Hi. How are you? Ladies, thank you. Have you ever thought about how much you know about your neighbors?
This show. I absolutely hate this show. It's one of my most scathing reviews back in the day, and my feeling for the show hasn't changed whatsoever. I really feel sorry for Regis Philbin, who hosted the show as well as he could. He didn't try to be another Bob Eubanks, as you see in most Newlywed Game rip-offs, but he let the gameplay flow. But that's not saying much because the show is nothing more than utter bullshit. This set is made up to be some lame format of Stepford Wives-esque suburbia, with every picket fence about as white as an elephant's tusks. It just looks terrible. Then you got to the gameplay itself, and this game invented the term Newlywed Game ripoff. Reed would ask a Newlywed Game style question, and the 2 contestants would have to catch which 3 of the neighbors said who would best fit that description. If they got it right, they won $25. The biggest problem I have with this show is that you can't really relate to the contestants. With the Newlywed Game, you can at least get some satisfaction. With this, you get nothing. The next 2 rounds are just as bad. Regis would read off a statement given by one of the neighbors that described a contestant, and they had to guess which neighbor said it. Guess it right, and you get cash. The winner got a prize package at the end, and it still doesn't make up for the show being outright garbage. When I actually reviewed the game show back in 2010, all we had was the pilot. Even then, nothing changed and the show was just as bad, if not worse, than the pilot. The actual show had a really bad animated opening that was bad on the eyes, and the actual theme it had was a step down from the pilot theme. Sure, the pilot theme was bad, but at least it was interesting. This is boring and bad. Thankfully, the show will be canceled in 15 weeks, and Regis would recover to make some great television in Live with Regis and Kathy Lee and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. As much as Roger Ebert hated North, I hate the neighbors just as much, if not more, than he does. Seriously, I hated this show. Hated this show. As Tony Kornheiser says on Pardon the Interruption, that's it. That's the list. Next time out here on Game Show Garbage, we're going to take a look at Season 3 of Hell's Kitchen. And as everybody knows, that's the season that put that show on the map. So you're going to get some good stuff for this list. Until then, I'm Robert Seidelman. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you, Abby. Bye-bye.